brownish jacket, and I never do my hair, so she was just and my dogs are gonna scream. So she was just pointing out that I either need to do my makeup more often, or how terrible I look most of the time, so I don't care. I have fire practice, so I'm gonna have to remove the makeup anyways. So I thought, this is my chance before I go and sweat and put other clothes, heavy clothes on. Now my dog is crying. This is perfect. I mean, perfect. Anyways, but I decided before I go to fire practice, fire training, I'm gonna sit here with you and try to share this case. If there are too many cuts, it's because all my animals have been interrupting, and if they're not too loud, I just think that I'm going to ignore it. That's why I didn't put headphones on, because I can hear everything and it kind of ruins it for me. And I stopped trying. Okay, we're 3 minutes into the video. I'll put a timestamp down below so you guys know when the video is going to start, just in case you're in a hurry or something. But anyways, today we're going to talk about Arturo Gatti, and I have to say Gatti because he was half Canadian, half Italian. So, let's talk about the dogs are barking, my dog is crying, this yellow light is giving me alien vibes, and I promise you, I've been trying, but it hasn't worked out, so I'm gonna have to accept the fact that I need to rent the space once a month and just share with you that I tried to get it all done in one day, which is a lot of work, like super supportive, that's the phrase of the day. She was also seeing some divorce lawyers, and she was asking them,
Mother of God, I've been trying to record this video and...
No, I promise I've been trying, but in this case, I tried so hard, and now when I tried to put the audio together with the video, the audio didn't even record. So it was a complete fiasco, and I added it into the beginning of this video just to show you that I've tried, and I'll probably have to come to terms that the only way I can sit in front of the camera is when I rent the space. I've meant to rent once a month, once a month, and that's the only way, because really my life is a circus, and living off grid presents its own challenges. So doing all the techie things, sometimes they just don't work, and right now I'm in that same utility closet, so I can hear the fan of my computer, and I'm gonna have to deal with it. But anyways, let's talk about Arturo Gatti, which you probably know his name, but I'll give you a brief background. He was born on April 15th, 1972, and was a well-known Italian-Canadian professional boxer who competed from the year 2004 to 2005. He also participated in the Ring magazine's Fight of the Year, a total of 4 times in the year 1997, 1998, 2002, and 2003. With all that recognition came money, lots of money, and lots of other things. But by July 14th, 2007, Arturo announced his retirement when he was only 37 years old. He was going to retire with his multi-million-dollar bank account, so it was going to be a pretty nice early retirement. A month after retiring, he married 21-year-old Amanda Rodriguez, who was born in Brazil. They were dating, or they've been dating at that point for about a year. And apparently the relationship was not the best, according to family and friends. So they went to the Grand Canyon and had a small wedding. And they basically eloped, never invited anybody. They just went and did it. There is a bit of controversy on how they met, though. Not that I care, but I'll tell you both versions in case you know the story one way or the other. The PG version says that, according to Amanda, they met at the park. Arturo was walking his dog and she was walking her dog. The rated R version says that they met at this go-go bar and she was a stripper. I don't care what version you believe, she was working at this bar and they were seen there together several times. But their relationship was a little bit what some people call passionate. Amanda was super jealous, and Arturo was too friendly with other girls. And there was this one instance where he was kind of flirting with 2 girls at the bar. And Amanda is a beautiful girl, super exotic beauty, the kind of girl you can't miss even being in a crowd. But Arturo happened to be surrounded by those kind of girls, and he was the kind of guy it was hard for him to say no. She threatened the girls. She wanted to fight the girls, and she even kind of said something like, where I come from, we kill unfaithful husbands, or something like that. It could have been something like, I don't know, that's the kind of thing that you'd say like in a funny way, or trying to sound tough maybe, but maybe she did mean it. Although I have to say, I have family in Brazil. I've been to Brazil more times than I can count, and I've never heard of this before. Are there any murders? Yeah. Domestic violence, most definitely, but I don't think this is a thing. Okay, I don't think this is a cultural thing, just in case you were wondering. Arturo was no fool though, and before they got married, Arturo made her sign a prenup where she wouldn't receive a penny if they divorced. She did sign it, and was this interview with Arturo's sister, Ana Maria, and she said that at one point Amanda called her and said, "Listen, I can't take this anymore. I don't love your brother anymore. This is a nightmare." But, the sister said, "Just leave him, divorce him." And she said, "Well, it's too late because I'm pregnant." Arturo was older, so he was ready to be a dad. He actually had a baby girl with another ex-girlfriend. And this time, they had a son. His name, Arturo Jr. After a while, Amanda and Arturo separated. But they decided to work on their marriage and possibly stay together. So they took a trip to Europe. Then they came back and they decided to go to Brazil. Colinas in Pernambuco, Brazil to be more precise. I've been there and I can tell you that those beaches are paradise. Warm water, like there's always this kind of breeze, but it's never like chilly here, like in the Pacific Northwest. Over there it's warm and it's I don't know, it's humid, but in the afternoon refreshing. There's beautiful people. I'm saying people, not only ladies, beautiful people everywhere. Everyone is in party mode, so it's a fun place to be at. And Arturo with his wife have been there many times before, at least in Brazil, because of her being from there. And this was a month-long kind of reconciliation trip. But as I always say, you can't run away from your problems because they're yours, so they follow you. You can always run away from people, but if you're the problem, guess what? They're gonna follow you anywhere. So on day 2 of being there, they go out to dinner and they start another fight. A disagreement, really. That's how it started. So Amanda got mad and left the restaurant. She was wearing a very short dress, and she decided to expose herself in front of everyone outside the restaurant. It was a big show, and people started laughing at this couple who was fighting in English. And Arturo, with his temper, he started to get mad at people. What's so funny? They continue to fight, and then he shoves Amanda. She hits the ground, cutting her face and elbow. Then she leaves, and he catches a taxi to follow her. At that point, and this is something that I can assure you, it happens. A few guys stopped the taxi and wanted to fight Arturo. Of course, they had no idea that Arturo was the boxer Arturo. So, they start fighting. Arturo breaks one of these guys' jaw. Then another guy hits him with a brick and a bicycle to the point that Arturo's head was bleeding. But instead of going to the hospital or calling an ambulance or getting help, he gets back in the taxi where he left his son. And he asks to be taken to the resort where he's staying. The next morning, July 11th, 2009, at around 9 a.m., was stiff and cold. When paramedics arrived, they say he had been dead for hours. The police arrives and starts their own investigation, but everything looked kind of weird, so they ended up calling a homicide detective. The detective noticed that if he in fact committed suicide, as the wife was saying, his body was in a weird position, defying gravity and physics overall. In his left side, Arturo's left side of his body, he had fluids. On the right, it was dry. There was blood coming out of his head, and they also found a towel with the blood on a table. They noticed lots of beer cans in the garbage, but there were no signs of struggle. Amanda says that she believed that he committed suicide and hanged himself with the purse strap, her purse strap. The purse strap was laying beneath the breakfast counter and looked ripped. Amanda was either in shock or not helping much. And it was kind of weird. How was this purse strap going to support 100 and I think almost 160, 170 pounds? And why is his skin missing from the neck? Too many questions, so the police decided to arrest her right there. They checked the footage and the entrance to their place, and it seemed like nobody entered with a key, but maybe somebody opened the door for a guest. However, there are no witnesses and no signs of home invasion. Amanda kept saying that after the fight, she came back to the resort and slept upstairs with the baby, and Arturo stayed downstairs. At 6 a.m., she came down to get milk for the baby and saw that Arturo was on the floor, but she thought he was just drunk and passed out. At 9 a.m., she came down again and realized that he was not breathing and likely dead. On July 30th, the police released her because they had no evidence against her. Arturo's family couldn't take it though. They requested a second autopsy, and this time in Canada. They also hired the top 2 private investigators who had to go through Arturo's history, the last 6 months, and overall the scene that they found with his body, where I found his body. The first thing they discovered was the other side of Arturo. The party boy, work hard, play hard, the drugs, the alcohol, a 10-year driver's license suspension, and how he always got in trouble with the ladies. His ex-girlfriend Erica even told him that he was addicted to painkillers and sleeping medicine. She even mentioned an incident where it seemed like he took one too many pills to end his life. To confirm that, there was another friend that said that Arturo mentioned way too many times that he was ready to die. He felt terrible because of the things he was suffering, like vision problems, some movements, and overall consequences of injuries things that he got after all his years of fighting. to his love life, they realized that, he was in fact separated from Amanda. And he was seeing another girl. Guess what her name is? Starts with a K. Karen. She was a Karen. And Karen explained that she only was with him because he kept telling her how much he hated his life with his wife, how evil she was, and how afraid he was of losing his son. Now, they had to go through the scene and physics and probabilities and the position of the body and forensics and all that, but the Brazilian police was sure that this was a suicide. The liquid on his left side pointed to that. I can't remember. They explain why, but can't remember. The black hands and feet, the blood on the floor, and where specifically it was. And the fact that it would have been impossible for a small girl like Amanda, 110 pounds, to strangle this super strong man and position him in that way to stage the scene. But it looked bad for Amanda because the private investigators tested what she thought that happened. The strap that she said he used broke with half of his body weight. They knew that she was seeing these divorce lawyers and she was trying to get some money. And the lawyer said, "I'm sorry, you can't get money. You get $0 because you signed that agreement." And to make things worse, 3 weeks before Arturo died, he changed his will and left everything to Amanda and their son. They couldn't believe it. Amanda kept changing the story, and things didn't make sense. And the fact that she said that she saw him at 6 a.m., which at that time that they were there, it would have been light out. I mean, you still see without turning on the light. And that she didn't see any blood. And then going at 9 and just noticing that there was something wrong with her husband. I mean, these private investigators even tested the theory of a suicide with a mannequin looking kind of thing. And this was Arturo's weight and height, and it just wouldn't make sense. They tried over and over again, and the body would never fall in the position that they found it. Never sideways. The body would always fall forward. They even hired a physician engineer, which sounds like a very smart kind of guy. They tested the strap and it wasn't long enough, but once they extended it, it was long enough. But he would slip through the kind of clasps in the purse. They look like those, not quite, but like carabiners, but fancier looking ones. I don't know how the police can say that would hold his weight. And every time the straps would break. So the private investigators concluded that somebody must have helped her. They believed that they both got home that night, tried to fix things, had sex, and then as he was getting out of bed, somebody hit him in the back of the head with something and strangled him. Detectives hush hush. But we also have the other side of the ex-girlfriend and friend that said that he committed suicide, or that he was willing to do that. I think that a life of drugs, alcohol, and even if you have lots of money, will never make you happy. It doesn't matter how famous you are, how popular you are, how handsome you are. Really, it takes a toll on you. And it creates that outer happiness that really is not what you feel in your heart. Probability says that it's not likely that he did this to himself, though. But we also know that no matter how smart we think we are and how much we think we understand things, in the end, there are things that we cannot explain. And maybe that's why we can't explain the position that he was at, or how this trap was able to hold his body in case that was the way that this happened. I think that as a family, it must be super hard to be in the position of thinking, did he actually do this to himself? It would only make sense in somebody's mind to believe that if, the experts say this is not possible, he should have been in another position. He shouldn't have been missing that part of skin from his neck. It's science telling you this is not possible. But then on the other hand, the Brazilian police saying, hey, I have no doubt that he took his own life. Was he so high that he did it, or was she smart enough to plan the whole thing? And within 3 weeks after being on the wheel, execute the perfect murder. I am coming to this end with no answer for you, or no theory of my own. But to say that he was a troubled man, and to point out once again that no matter how popular you are, no matter how rich you are, and no matter how successful you are, you have to deal with your own demons. And if you choose drugs and alcohol, that will be temporary. That will be a temporary dealing, but it will never actually go to the roots of your problems. So I hope that, people like this would find the help they need with the money and the resources that they have. I wish that they would look for help from experts, psychologists, psychiatrists, maybe even in faith. I don't know. But I think that the easy way out is just try to numb the pain instead of trying to get to the root of the pain to move on from it. A successful life, I don't know. I can say a successful career for Arturo Gatti. But all that money, all that fame, all that praise, for what? Maybe his son. But how terrible must be to realize one day that your mom could have been behind on what happened to your dad. I have Arturo'S.